Terra watched idly as the Lupersk fleet fired away at the massive planetary shield that surrounded her. Every now and then, they'd get creative and throw in an asteroid or a dozen, only to be met with the same rippling blue aura that had shrugged off their most powerful of weapons for the last 3 years. Had she an organic body, she would have huffed in derision. For all the pomp and circumstance Allar had made about his precious Luperska, Terra found them to be exceedingly lacking. Perhaps she was being too hard on them though. Allar had always been a planet more concerned with presentation rather than practicality. True, there was little he could have done about his small size. Not without the aid of his solar brothers and sisters, who liked him about as much as Terra herself did. So the Lupersk, being as frail and physically unimpressive as they were, wasn't entirely his fault. Then again, the fact that he had coddled them so and tried to sell them off as some kind of warrior species was laughable. When was the last time the Lupersk had needed to fight for their own survival? Certainly not on the galactic stage, where most planets and their respective races' empires wanted little more than to grow and prosper. Allar himself had refused to do any more than throw the occasional harsh rainstorm their way, and little else. Life on his surface in general was rather lackluster in all honesty. For all that Terra wailed and mourned over the millions of species that had gone extinct on her surface, from one mass extinction or another, it had made her children hardy and strong. Had made them everything that Allar wished his Luperska were. Allar was not alone in his jealousy of Terra's humans. Of the life that grew on her surface in general, he was however the most vocal by far. If her children were able to fully comprehend the existence of herself and those like her, they would probably relate Allar to a toddler throwing a tantrum because someone had a cooler toy than him. Terra herself saw him more as an annoying fly that had gotten stuck in her ear. It wasn't an inaccurate comparison either. The shield protecting her from orbital bombardment had a very faint buzz to it whenever struck, the result of thousands of satellites working to dissipate the incoming energy over as great a surface as possible, as well as having to draw even more energy from the surface-bound power generators to maintain the shield's strength. She had grown used to it over the past few years, but it was still annoying whenever she took a moment to focus on it. Terra shook her thoughts away from Allar's immaturity and the impotence of the Lupersk bombarding her and turned her attention to the rest of her family's system. She was the only one with a planetary shield, so the real battle for humanity's home took place around the others. Luna was military fortress, the likes of which none could match. Any Lupersk ship foolish enough to come within effective range of her surface and orbital-based cannons and lasers were obliterated in moments. The fleet surrounding her was a token one at best, more to clear up any debris whenever someone got the bright idea to try a suicide run on Terra's sister. The protective little hellion that she was often took great amusement in taunting Allar and his colonies. The full military might of the Lupersk Empire can't even break past the defenses of a single moon with no fleet, she'd say. How embarrassing. Mars, unlike Luna, was not a military fortress, but rather a hub of trade, culture, and an archive of information. His orbital defenses needed support from the fleets of humanity to push back against the Lupersk tide. But pushed back they were. Venus and Mercury were left alone for the most part, the Lupersk putting little thought into how important those two actually were to human infrastructure. Most of the fighting took place around Terra's gas giant siblings, hundreds of thousands of Lupersk ships fighting desperately to gain a foothold in the system, their distracted fleets over Terra herself not counting. Again, Terra couldn't help but laugh at the thought of Allar toting on about these things being a legitimate threat to anyone. In the 3 years that the Lupersk have tried invading her father Sol's system, she had counted some several tens of million vessels, trying and failing to break past their defenses. At first, humanity had been terrified and scrambled almost 90% of their fleets, nearly 33 million vessels, to defend their home system and Terra herself. They soon learned that they needn't have bothered obliterating the original invading force to a ship within the week. Eventually, they decided to leave a slightly larger home fleet, about 250,000 vessels, to take care of the rest of the invaders, whom humanity was now actively funneling into the solar system. while the rest of their fleets went back to defending the colonies and running amok in through Lupersk territory. Terra laughed to herself. The Lupersk's empire was in total shambles after 2 decades of war. It had originally been 50 times the size of humanity's own territory. But now just under half of it was under human control, and the rest was ravaged by rebellion, famine, and the like, spread by the practiced hands of humanity. The discontent were supplied weapons and training, the loyal had their supply lines and outposts regularly raided or destroyed. And Allar continued to stunt his children by whispering in their ears that they were superior, that they would win the day despite the humans' dishonorable and unsustainable actions. Terra continued to laugh as the first of humanity's probing fleets entered Allar's system, the vanguard for the 10 million vessel and several billion personnel strong invasion fleet. Allar would soon be under Terra's direct rule, and she would finally be able to silence his incessant tantrum as humanity raised their flag on his soil, claiming him as theirs and in the name of their mother Terra. The author's name and the link to original text is in the description. Consider tapping the thumbs up and pressing the subscribe button if you enjoyed this video.